Thank you, guys. I know you guys are switching the content over, so I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the mix of human and technology and how we do that to deliver better experience design. It's something I feel pretty passionate about, and it's funny because in my career, I was always the guy sort of advocating for technology, digital solutions to deliver better experience. And I sort of saw over years everybody sort of run to the digital side of the boat. And what I'm seeing now is something a little different. The opportunity now is, I think, a little different for us. So that's what I want to talk about. So I think I've already talked a little bit about who we are, Matt Powell, and who I am. I head up the financial services practice, and that's me there in the back. It's a very fun place to work, and this is our summer outing. In my work, I get a chance to work with clients and with our teams to help imagine new services, new products, and new approaches to experience design. It's really great. We even get a chance to influence sometimes the business model. I know Ryan was just talking about sort of having that business language and business sensibility. That's definitely important. So at very much risk as being the guy going right before lunch, I'm going to talk about sandwiches. That's going to be the beginning of this. Very risky, right? So I went to school for design and technology at the same time. It was 20 plus years ago, and that was very odd at the time. I actually couldn't decide, and I had to pick a path. I actually ended up picking the design path. And before I sort of started my career in earnest, I got a job at a sub shop. And I met a guy there who owned the shop. His name was Spiro. He was a great guy. He's like a family friend now. If I saw Spiro, it would be a big hug right now. And the thing that was great about Spiro was that he had this just great way with people. People came in, and he remembered everybody's name. He remembered everybody's children, where they worked, and he would ask a question, no matter how busy it was. He'd be running around like crazy, and he'd say, how was Texas? And it was great. People loved it. And I have to say, I don't know that the sandwiches were any better than any other place, but people loved coming there. I think they liked being part of kind of a community and being special and being kind of a VIP in Spiro's mind. Why is this relevant? Spiro gave me a lot of insight into customer experience and user experience that I came to appreciate many years later. And in fact, about 10 years later, after establishing my career in digital, I was given the opportunity for a new role heading up digital at a sandwich chain. So a little full circle in a way. And as part of that process, I was talking to senior leadership about the kind of role it is and what they imagine for the future, and this was many years ago, and they described this experience that you would come into the sandwich shop and you'd have a kiosk and you'd put in your order and you'd get alerts on your phone and you'd get ads and coupons and they sort of described this very technology-focused approach. And it was about when they got there, I realized this isn't the place for me. It doesn't feel right to me. And part of it was because I believe they engineered out kind of the best part of the experience, the human part of the experience. So I did not go take that role, and I sort of went on to do other things. And as I said, I came to appreciate the lessons I had learned many years prior. And I think the same lesson applies to all of us, especially in financial services. And I'll tell you why, especially in a minute. I really believe strongly that experience design is this thoughtful blend. The best experiences are a thoughtful blend of technology and humanity. And I think if we do a great job of truly designing how those come together, that's a huge next opportunity. With sort of everyone has phones now, everyone understands digital. We have to get to kind of the next level, and this is where I believe we're headed. It's regardless of industry, but certainly applies to financial services. And I love technology. I've built a career around it. I'm that guy who always has the thing first. The Alexa and all those, I've been hacking those kinds of devices for many years, and I love it. But I have to say, over the years, I've also come to appreciate what humans can do for the experience. And this is a good quote. I actually think someone said this earlier. Let's see a computer give you a haircut, right? So when I really think about core strengths, human versus AI or technology, what are humans great at? They're still very good at things like empathy, sympathy, nuance, also calling an audible, to use a sports metaphor, breaking the rules. It's very hard to teach a computer when to kind of go off script, but sometimes going off script is exactly the right thing to do. It's the best. It's kind of the best moment with a customer of yours. Example of that, I think Capital One. You should definitely Google this, but many years ago, Capital One had a rep that saw a denied transaction. Person called in, and he learned a little bit more about the situation. It was a woman who just broke up with her boyfriend. She was trying to buy furniture or something along those lines, and he couldn't do much about it. But what he did do was he found kind of a wrinkle in the rules where he could bequeath her some travel miles so that she could, with a nice message, that she could, enjoy a break and something along those lines. It was just such a great customer touch point. I defy an algorithm to ever have done that. And had you figured out an algorithm to do that, that might be odd. That might look like you've got some weird engineering rules and you're not really feeling anything there. So there's still some things that I think humanity is meant for, and so we should remember that. What are technology tools and AI good for? I think these are all things we know, right? Pattern recognition, precision, prediction, memory and retrieval. As I get older, my memory system's depleting, and I know that all computers have been superior in that capacity. So I think we should rely on technology tools to deliver those kinds of capabilities. And if we kind of mix all these together and blend them, we should be able to deliver world-class customer experience and user experience. That's a combination of things here. That's humans doing what they're great at, and that's technology doing what it's great at, whether it be AI or other tools there. There's also a lot of interesting crossover that's happening where, here's a good example, I guess. Coco is the kind of the underlying engine with some of the voice interface, like Alexa, and they're aiming to use that technology in other ways. One is they're trying to build actually an empathy engine, believe it or not. So they're trying to get computers better at least recognizing some of those situations, and to do that, they're leveraging human beings to train the system to know when a situation calls for a particular response, which is interesting. As I said, computers have this opportunity to, I think, offer whole new products, perhaps. State Farm, for example, has been experimenting with biometric data and collecting that data and using it to more accurately dial in on risk and now deliver kind of a personalized product. That's kind of new territory, and that's a great use, I think, of technology and data to provide a better product. So these are new products that can be achieved now through better use of technology. One thing I like to see is we've heard reference a little bit of this today. This idea that technology can sort of be this exoskeleton, and it made me think of Aliens, where we've got literally that big exoskeleton, or Iron Man, I guess would be probably another example there. So where we basically enhance a human's ability to do what they do best. I see a lot of this in wealth management, where it's still a very relationship business, very much a relationship business, and those relationship managers don't want to sort of step away from the customer. They want to use tools that help them stay close and be even smarter. So the idea of AI recognizing things and feeding it to a person to deliver it in the best way, the most appropriate way, that's something that is sort of this exoskeleton idea. There's lots of other examples. I grabbed a couple here. One, BlackRock uses satellite imagery to kind of chart the development of certain areas, and that influences their investment managers, and they then make the action to invest or not, and it's based on this information. There's no other way they could have perceived or could have known. Likewise, last year we had a company, Prattle. I love what they're doing. They have a tool that, for public companies that do investor calls in earnings reports, they have a sentiment engine that takes a look at that whole transcript, and it has learned and is continuing to learn what it means and how it relates to value and how it relates to performance of the company. And it's a really interesting use of technology to kind of see things that maybe we can't see, patterns or connections or correlations that we couldn't see any other way. A couple examples that I'm really impressed with that I'm happy to bring here. I know Vanguard is here. We've got some people here. Betterment was here last year. I don't think they could make it this year. But they're both interesting examples within the wealth management space of kind of this blended approach. Vanguard is the market leader right now with robo-advising, which everybody's probably seen these robo-advisors coming in, this automatic investment vehicle that has been very popular with the millennial audience. Lower fees, automatic, very app-based, it kind of checks a lot of boxes there. Well, Vanguard's been known for people. They've had some of the best people delivering that for years. So they added to their people a robo-advisor capability and now have kind of the best of both worlds and are continuing to tick upward. Betterment was seen as the leader in robo. It was the one that sort of rose above everyone else. They continue to do a phenomenal job, and I follow them on social, and they do a lot of sort of giving back to the financial community and driving financial literacy and so on. Well, they realized somewhere along the way, they always promised they would only be a robo-advisor, and that's all they were ever going to do. And they realized that was an opportunity cost that they needed to pivot. And so they've added people. And I think currently it's to a premium level, but clearly they're seeing a direction here where we need to kind of deliver both. And I find that interesting. Other sort of examples here within retail banking, I'm impressed with what Bank of America is doing with Erica. They've focused on some of the really kind of painful situations that customers might have had, and have routed that to their chatbot approach. So with their chatbot, you've probably seen some of the ads have started to hit the market now, but you can lock your card, unlock your card. You can imagine before that, you would call. Here's what would happen to me. I would lose my card. You'd call. They'd cancel it. I'd find it. And then you'd call back, right? Easy. No, forget it. It's already in the mail or in the system or something. So they've made things like that very easy. That's a really good use of technology. I think taking pain points and really shrinking them down. My favorite example, and I could do an entire talk on these guys. I've been really paying attention to them because I've been doing a lot of work in the insurance space these days. So I'm just going to focus a little bit on how they have taken technology in to just streamline and kind of get the best of everything. So Lemonade is an insurance player, for those that don't know. They've really focused on rental insurance, and they've made it very, very easy and simple. And they're starting. They don't have a huge market share, but they're getting a lot of notice because they're starting to get a lot of notice. So on the front end, what they've done is they've made acquisition. So getting the product is almost fully automated. So you connect with a bot here, Maya, and you're asked a few questions, and you kind of glide your way through the process. And it is a very, very easy, simple process. I actually went through it just to understand it even better. So great win there for technology, one that has, I think, helped them deliver smaller operational costs. Well, insurance is all about claims, and what have they done kind of on that side of the house? Well, here's where they've taken a multifaceted approach, I guess I would say. They're trying to really lower the suffering that a customer might have when they have a claim. You can imagine that's a traumatic situation. It's not you would think it's a great place for people, and they do have that covered, which I'm going to get to. But at the front line, what they have is this kind of very easy process to kind of start your way through, give some basic information. And for a huge component of people, there's no risk for them to learn enough about it and pay. So for some people, it's literally seconds, and they claim the world record. It's a little bit of a PR thing, but I believe it's true. The fastest claim payoff of 3 seconds is something that they're proud to report back, which incumbents see that, and I would defy them to get anywhere close to that. That's tough, right? So great use of technology there on the front end of things. But they've also kind of organized themselves for humanity. And they really, if you follow them on Twitter, they're very committed to this. They talk about their claims team, the people. This is their mission. It's really about providing empathy and speed. Those are the two things they know. If they can do those two things together, they can really win and start to gain market share. So they've built their team in a way that takes away a key facet, and it gets to their business model as well, which I'm not going to go into. But the idea that many insurance providers are kind of incented in a way to lower that claims payout number. That's a challenge because in a way now, if I'm in that situation as the company, I'm in a tug of war a bit with those people that are in a very tough spot. They've just had, think of the emotional place that they're at when they've had a loss. So what Lemonade's done is organized to avoid that. They have kind of two different roles. One is an advocate whose really only job is to help you, the customer, through that process. And they're like super customer focused to make sure that goes smoothly, you feel good. They're empathy trained. Separately, they have claims specialists. Those are more of your adjusters that are experts in loss management. This is still a business. And by the way, Lemonade is still figuring this out. They haven't found a way to do this at scale and make lots of money, but they're committed enough that they're going to figure it out. So for them, they've got adjusters here that are more that expert on the loss management side. And what they're now able to do, even when you don't get that automatic claims response, they've lowered that claims cycle by about 10 times. 11 days, about the industry average. They're about 1 day if you go through their system. The other clever thing they've done is the way they get paid has kind of broken that tension, that tug of war I was talking about, which I'm not going to go into, but it's very interesting to see that they're committed and they're doing a good job, I think, of using technology. They've gone further, right? So they really want to lower operational costs and use technology to do so. So what did they do? They created an internal robot, an internal AI called Cooper, and it's really aimed at operations. They want to bring operations and streamline it. So the idea that in all of our jobs, and I can say this about mine, there's a part of your workday which is running around getting things, getting a document or chasing something down, something tedious that isn't really why you were hired if you think about it. If you could maximize the amount, if you think of our design team, if we could maximize how much they get to do design, they'd be happier, we'd be happier, we'd be more efficient. Well, that's what Lemonade's doing. They've created this Cooper, which is based in Slack here, and it does things like gets a loss report that's needed or a logo file. It's really being used heavily in marketing. You can imagine across markets, they've got thousands of different impressions that are all different flavors. Cooper manages all that and also manages releases of the software that Lemonade's running on, which is a complex process. So it continues to be invested in and gets better and better year over year. And they report staggering results in terms of productivity gains. It's early for them, but they're already reporting out about 4 times productivity gains with these kinds of tools. So great use of technology to really help people focus on what they're doing. The other amazing thing, I mentioned empathy and speed and the customer focus they have. They're reporting an NPS score. There's not everyone believes in NPS, but what we can say is that there's a lot of people using it. So we've got some baselines. Within the industry, they're in the 70 territory, which is kind of unheard of. It's a number, kind of like USAA when they report some of their loyalty numbers that are beyond what anybody else in their category is doing. Insurance as a category is less than 20 for NPS. So this is really paying off for them. So last bit here, I always feel I'd be remiss if I didn't give some tips for what do we do about all this or action as a consultant. So there's a few things I think. One is I tell people you really have to understand the journey. And I think there's some people probably in this room that are very committed and have done lots of journey mapping to understand what customers are going through and how it works. There's others probably in this room that are just beginning that process or just thinking about it or haven't done much. It's really important to map out what that journey looks like and then find key moments for humanity along the way. They'll be there. I guarantee it. They'll be there, especially in financial services, a very kind of emotional topic for folks, which I talked about earlier. The other thing is I just dropped in kind of a smattering of things. We're always talking about designing for behavior at MadPow, and I talked about that earlier in the open. There's some really quirky things about how people think. One is people lose confidence more quickly in a computer that makes a mistake than when a person makes that same mistake, which is kind of odd. There's a term called algorithm aversion, which is also a bit counterintuitive. It's that there's evidence that shows that people, clearly technology can more accurately forecast things. We've proven that across a lot of different areas. And despite that fact, people often want a human to do that prediction for them, which is strange, but we need to consider that when we're designing. And relatedness is a term that Amy Bucher on our team will use quite a bit. It's a component of a theory of motivation. And I talked about Spiro earlier, right? He was delivering relatedness. And that's very motivating to people. It's innate. It's built in our DNA, and we need to design for that when we're building new digital tools. And there's ways that you can do that, and incorporating humans, I think, is a key component of that for sure. Also, when adding automation or technology, choose wisely. I hope there's no one from Lowe's here. This is not a bash on them by any means. They added this is a real problem, actually. I say it real because it's like this. I've had this problem. Trying to find something at Lowe's or Home Depot is damn near impossible. I looked for that orange apron somewhere. Well, they recognize that as a problem, and they said, you know what we're going to do? Let's put a robot out in front, and people can interact with it, and you can find what you need. Good idea in that they identified the problem, but in this case, I think the tactic would have been far better served with a mobile solution now that smartphone penetration is pretty great in this country. So choose the right method, when you are incorporating technology. I think that's an important thing to think about. And then also, like I showed you with Cooper and with Lemonade, consider back office, consider places beyond just the front end for incorporation of AI and technology. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, kind of underneath the water, where you can just streamline the experience or help people on your teams work more efficiently or smarter, or just focus on why you hired them. I think that's a really key aspect of all of this as well. So, heading into lunch, it's great. I believe that great customer experience is this harmonious delivery. It's really needs to be a combination of humans, technology, and it really is a thoughtful recipe. So I would love for you guys to consider that. Just sort of, I guess, postscript to this. In prep for this, I was looking at venues for various events that we were doing nearby here. And I saw there's a restaurant about 20 feet, it feels like, from here. It's like literally right there. And it was founded by a bunch of MIT students that have automated the cooking process. It's called Spice, and you should check it out. It's kind of amazing. They have a video on their website, Spice with a Y. And what they've done is figured out a way to have chef-quality food cooked kind of automatically. It's really interesting. It's kind of very congruent. I couldn't work it in, but I did want to mention it because it's so close. If you're hanging around Boston, you should check it out for sure. Have you been there? Oh, I haven't been there. I'm dying to check it out. It's like busy doing this thing. Excellent. So with that, I have a couple quick announcements, and there's so many of them that I actually have notes here, so bear with me. We're going to go right into lunch. We got about an hour, so get to know each other. We got great food. The venue here, tremendous food. So I hope you enjoy the food. It should be really, really good. I want to mention that we have some folks out in the sponsor lobby here. Some have already spoken. We've got some MadPow folks that we invented a kind of game approach to persona development. Personas are a great design tool to really drive empathy. I'd love for you guys to just check it out. It's a really clever thing and really interesting thing that I think you guys might find interesting as well. We also have our MadPow booth and lots of giveaways there. we bought this stuff, so you'll take it. Water bottles, they're really high quality water bottles. We've got some white paper insight stuff that you can pick up, and also I think an infographic style poster around the social determinants of financial well-being. It might be useful in your job, and you might be able to use it wherever you're going. Last thing is we have Jeff Chrysler, who will be speaking soon. He's an author. He wrote a book with Dan Ariely about sort of behavioral economics. We're going to be giving his book away. I think what we asked is that lots of social activity always helps us. So if you could use our hashtag FXD 2018, I think it is, we'll pick out some folks and we'll find other maybe clever ways to give away that book. It's really interesting, and you'll hopefully find his talk very, very interesting in our next segment, which is very focused on behavior. And I know a lot of people are intrigued by that topic, so I hope you find that useful. So that's it before lunch. So with that, I'd love to just welcome you out to the area here for lunch, and sponsors are over this way. So we'll see you in about an hour.